Oh, there it is. It's a video game. Hi, everybody. It's time for Citizen Sleeper. Update. Episode Refuge out now. Refuge continues the story that started in Flux. Go to the Greenway to begin Flux. Refuge will follow directly after the cordon. Go to the website to find out more. Hey, much like a host on a TV show, I'm going to pull this one fresh baked out of the oven. So this file, I loaded the file we were playing, and I chose an option so that I didn't leave, instead of an option so that I did leave. I need to wait for this clock to fill up, so I'm just waiting. Sitting, waiting, wishing. Hey, I'm going to show you something that they also changed in this update that I did check really quick. Real quick, like, if I do this and I try and drop this in there, it says no. It says you're not allowed to do that. You can do it after the fact, but not while it's rolling. So, good on you, Citizen Sleeper team, for fixing that and not letting me get away with my crimes anymore. Number one on my wish list for the next update. Make it so I can do this in one thing. I don't really need to be doing this, but if I can play Tavla and I'm not playing Tavla, what am I even doing? Yeah, let's try it. Okay. Again, gotta play a little Tavla. Gotta feed the stray. It hits you like a wave, a white-edged breaker roaring inland with the force of the entire ocean. The impact is a screaming brightness, blanking out everything. Behind it is silence. You float in silence, suspended. No, you do not float. You are the silence. It has filled you up. It has emptied you out. You cease to exist. Time passes, though you do not feel it passing. I don't know if this is DLC or something else. We'll find out in a sec. Then something flickers in the silence. And then something moves. That something is you. You open your eyes to a metal ceiling of flickering lights. You feel the floor around you, patting it with your shaking hands. You assemble an image of yourself lying on your back in a corridor. You shake off the silence and sit up. What was that? You glance around looking for a sign of some change. Damage on the walls, shouts in the distance, fire and fear. Nothing has changed. The silence sits around you like fog. You try to think, furrowing your brow. How do you think again? It doesn't seem so easy anymore. You force the pathways to light up, the databanks to grant access. You feel like a fraction drive starting up after a long shutdown in cold vacuum. In the wave was noise. Just as the sound produced by a wave raking across a pebble beach represents trillions of impacts, heard as a single roar, so this sound was the result of trillions of electrons flickering in place, heard as a single, impossible scream. A memory/image comes to you, one from the moments before the wave hit. You squint as you imagine it, trying to cohere its blurry form, a broken skeletal ring. The eye, and then a vast arc approaching it, a razor-edged white curve. The wave. The wave approaches the eye. The eye spins, turning each part to face that white edge. You recognize their skeletal data cloud forms. The bright market, the low end, the greenway, the wastes. Then the wave hits just as the flotilla, the cordon, turns to face it. And after that, everything is silence. You open your eyes again. That is the epicenter. Oh, the barrels! The barrels. Oh dear. Oh no. But of what? Oh, I'm worried about the barrels. Oh no. Oh no. I know it's not time-based, but we gotta hurry. Even before you reach the cordon, the damage is obvious. The blinking red lights, the drones, the tugs are all gone. Half the cordon's frame has also been shorn away, perhaps through the impact of some falling ship. People push past you in the corridor, both Havenage staff and contractors, clearing the cordon. They're not going to have the information I need. You push through the flow of people, and despite a few suspicious looks, they offer no resistance. The further you pass into the cordon, the less people you see. You can see a few sections have been closed off, their bulkhead doors sealed and red warning lights punctuating the corridors, but otherwise most areas seem functional. Suddenly you feel a hand on your shoulder. Havenage security? You should have known better than to wander into this place. You brace yourself as you turn. Sleeper! Peek's wide eyes greet you as you turn. The cordon. They glance around, panicked. It's gone down. The Briar and Esh are still in there. Do you think she did this? Or perhaps Havenage messed up? They start pulling you towards the edge of the cordon. We should find her. What if... It wasn't her or Havenage. Peek stops. What are you saying? There was a wave. Peek frowns. A wave? What do you mean? They pause to think. A signal that only affects electrical systems, perhaps? An EMP would have taken out most of the station, but... Peak runs a hand through their hair. I don't know what you are saying, Sleeper. That doesn't sound... They look away down the corridor for a moment. Look, I have to find Esh. I'm sure you felt something, but we can talk about that later. They set off down the corridor. I can't sit around talking any longer. Find me on the flotilla. I'm going to find a way to Esh, no matter what. With that, they rush away into the depths of the cordon, leaving you behind. Seems like you'll need to follow if you want to get any answers. Let me, Yeah, move the mic a bit. Do I have scrap? I do have scrap. Dracley's here. Welcome, Dracley. We got hit by a big wave of something, and we're still not sure what it is / was, but it knocked us out, and the flotilla and cordon got real messed up. That's what we know so far. Can I upgrade indoor or interface with my upgrades? Yes, I'm going to upgrade my interface, because why not? It might have been aliens. We're not sure yet. The wave hits systems more than anything, especially those on the ships. So there's 1,000 tiny repair jobs to be done. You rebooted tanker's proximity controls, keeping it from drifting into other ships. The occupants are impressed and won't stop thanking you. Ugh, I know I'm great. This will at least be neutral, which should be okay. Yeah, okay, we'll do this. Let's talk to Soul first. Somebody told me I should be thanking you. The voice comes from behind you, cutting through the chaos of the crowded, cavernous bay. You freeze. I hope I nailed the voice. Let's see. Don't be afraid now. I've been hunting you, sure, but for all the best reasons. You turn to see bright eyes set in a rough face, framed in rusted metal. Soul. He holds out his hand, the other clamped firmly around a knotted wooden cane. Shake his hand. He grips you firmly with a heavy and calloused hand. Forgive me. As soon as I saw you, I knew who you were. Soul puts a hand on your shoulder. I've been told a sleeper was part of that supply run that came in several cycles ago. He nods. A very welcome act, and we all thank you for it. Walk with me, sleeper. Soul sets off through the bay, his partial suit hissing and creaking as it helps carry him through the busy crowds. You notice people making way for you and Soul, standing back and letting you pass. You pass a makeshift kitchen, steaming pots on heating elements, a restless queue collecting meals. That algae that came through isn't exactly a full meal, but with what we have here, we've been able to make it work. You see a ladle of greenish stew dished out. The color is something, isn't it? Saul smiles. Saul leads you out of the larger bay, into a corridor lined with storage rooms that are now serving as dorms. You see something filling a metal container from a standpipe, the water gushing out readily. Saul nods to the person as he passes. Just a little further now. Saul leads you into a freight elevator and whistles to some unseen operator to start it up. It jerks into life, and as you pass through the layers of the ship, you see people on every level, supplies crammed into every available space, and sparks leaping in bursts as the ship is reshaped and modified to sustain its population. If Havenage were expecting an exodus from the flotilla, the Flux event has put a stop to that. Soul stretches. Some have crossed to the Eye, but many just to gather salvage or score a hot meal. So the pressure on our supplies is shrinking, but not like I'd hoped. With the flux reaching all the way out here, people are starting to understand that our journey might not be over. Saul stares grimly ahead. Suddenly, the freight elevator screeches to a halt, and Saul leads you slowly out into a wide room of chairs and terminals, ringed by a mezzanine with a glass roof above showing the distant hub and the far curve of the eye beyond. The people at the terminals nod to him as he enters. "This is your ship?" Saul nods. "That's right. The Pilgrim Seed is mine to care for." He leads you up to a railed platform at the center of the room and stops. "She chose me, so to speak. Well, at least her crew did, and I do my best to serve them." Saul looks around the bridge of the ship, a pained expression on his face. "I'll admit that the responsibility isn't one that suits me, though we rarely get to choose such things." He glances back at you. "But you, Sleeper, from what I understand, you chose to try to help us here. Is that right?" Something like that. Don't be ashamed of it." Saul shakes his head. "I don't mean to shame you. But I have to ask you, Sleeper, why are you here now?" Saul leans back, and you feel his eyes on you, assessing you. "The Flux event. I appreciate the honesty. I had figured as much." Saul flexes the shoulder that is free of the suit. "Looking at you now, I can see that an event like that, well, it would have had a big impact." He smiles a half smile. "I have tens of thousands of people here on the Pilgrim Seed, Sleeper, and there's tens of thousands more out in the flotilla." He leans against a railing. "A lot of them are looking to me to provide some future for them, some path out of this dead end we've got into. And this cycle, this very cycle, the thing we've been running away from, it just caught up with us. So these people are scared, Sleeper, and they're looking to me for reassurance. And then, on the same cycle, somebody tells me they see you on board. A sleeper, the same sleeper, they reckon, that wanted so strongly to send a ship past the cordon to see us." Saul scratches his beard. "So the first thing I wanted to do was thank you for that, for your interest." He pauses. "But the second thing I wanted to do is find out what you want from us." Saul's suit hisses and creaks. "I think that's fair. Don't you?" Saul takes a deep breath. "So, what is it?" I do want to help these people, don't get me wrong. That is part of it. But I'm really curious about what's going on, so tell me about the Flux." Someone at a terminal calls out to Saul, and he shouts some orders back. He turns to you. "Apologies." He smiles that half smile. "I tell you what, Sleeper. Let's you and me make a deal. You want information, I understand that. But I have a list of needs longer than the rim of the eye itself." He grimaces. "So you do some things for me, and then we can talk about what's been happening in the system, and I will answer all your questions and then some. I may be the captain of the Pilgrim Seed, and she is certainly the biggest ship in this flotilla, but I'm not the only captain here. We have ships here from each of the moons. Ember's Hearth, just like us, but plenty more from Ember's Song and even Ember's Step. The moons have been at each other's throats, Sleeper. What with the pressure of the flux, the bad blood from the old days." Saul leans in. "We aren't exactly all in alignment. What I need is a way to stop things escalating. For the crews on these ships and their captains to feel happy and comfortable enough to forget old rivalries and past crimes." He flinches at something. "Those from Ember's Step, well, they've always been proud, but that pride seems to be a barrier to compromise right now. The last set of supplies I sent their way, they refused. Meanwhile, I have a supply shuttle at the docking access the Ember Song ships gather at, but they have taken far too many cycles to unload. Maybe if you are heading that way, you can look in on them. I'm no politician, Sleeper, but if I don't..." Saul stops. He leans back and flexes, his suit screeching. He groans a little, and you see the weight of the flotilla sitting on his shoulders, the suit the only thing keeping him vertical beneath that pressure. Look, you'll see for yourself if you go. Meet the others, Sleeper. See what they need. Keep them aligned. He speaks through the pain, his voice clipped. Are you okay? Not really, but as long as this thing holds, he grimaces. I hope, Sol grits his teeth, you are what you appear to be, Sleeper. He smiles his half smile despite the pain, because I'm not sure if I can take more bad news. Plus, there's plenty still to be done here on the Pilgrim Seed. If you have a moment to pitch in, there's never enough around here. That's something I have learned the hard way. Sol settles onto his cane, the pain visibly receding. All right, I have 1,000 things to attend to now, Sleeper, so you'll have to find your own way out. And with that, Sol sits at his terminal with slow and careful movements. You head back down in the freight elevator, and as you do, you see again the layers and layers of chaotic life this vessel, and all the vessels in the flotilla, hold. Okay. Take a little sip after that. As you walk into the bay of the climbing briar, the familiarity of the space overcomes any trepidation. It feels good to be back, and the return feels earned, especially after all the work it took to figure out a route through the flotilla's jumble of ships that might lead you to this blue streak. You see Esh and Peak immediately, sitting at the back of the bay, deep in conversation. Their closeness causes you to stop, suddenly aware that you might be interrupting something private. Peak is gesturing wildly as Esh stares out into the middle distance, hunched over. As Peak tries to get her attention, she spots you. Sleeper, Esh nods. Didn't quite turn out like we hoped, right? Peak stops and glances between the two of you, the tension rising. I'm not going to lay the blame on her. I thought it went pretty well, but maybe my memory is faulty. I'm going to say the plan was always risky. For me more than you, Esh shakes her head. Maybe if you'd spent less time trying to question it, things would have gone better. Peak looks nervous. It has worked out, they appeal to you. The Flux event knocked the entire Cordon system offline. The flotilla is free, and Havenage are backing off. Flux event? That's what the refugees are calling it, Peak explains. Apparently that is what they called it when it started happening around Ember. I don't think we're going to get real information on this, so I'm going to say, how's the flotilla? Surviving, Esh says bluntly. But the tensions they brought with them from Ember's moons are boiling over after the Flux event. The Flux is some kind of disruptive wave that only affects electrical systems. Peak chips in. So when it hit the flotilla, everything went haywire. The ships are far less well screened than the Eye, so they took the brunt of the wave. The crisis continues, Esh sighs. The Cordon may be down, but this brings a whole other set of problems. You should tell them, Esh. Peak glances at her. Please. Esh doesn't respond. Tell you what? You stare at her back, waiting for a response. Please, Esh, haven't they shown you that they can be trusted? Peak nods towards you. Esh turns, arms folded tightly across her chest. She goes to start and then stops. You can see the anger in her eyes, but you realize it is not directed at you or at anyone else. She is angry with herself. I brought weapons to the flotilla, and now they are gone. I knew those barrels were going to come back. You suddenly remember the sleek crates. Oh, they were crates, that's right, that were tucked into the bay, marked with a yellow sigil. The ones Esh told you were just supplies. What do you mean gone? What do you think? Esh snaps. Someone lifted them from the ship's bay while I was unloading the supplies. She sniffs. Oh, my signal's awful right now. Let's wait for it to come back. It's trying to stabilize. Maybe. We might be okay. I think we're good. I think we're good. Whew. Maybe we just got hit by a wave. The flux. What do you think? Esh snaps. Someone lifted them from the ship's bay while I was unloading the supplies. She sniffs. At least they're in the hands of the flotilla now. Peak looks to you. She knows this was a bad move, Sleeper, I promise you. He glances back at her. She is just too proud to admit it. So what now? Peak looks at Esh. She finds them and she gets them back. Shouldn't we help? Esh turns. It's okay, Sleeper. I don't want anyone else getting mixed up in this. This is my responsibility. She looks away. Plus, Peak adds, you and I have work to do. I want to understand the flux, Sleeper, to study it. Peak's eyes light up. The thing is changing the entire system, causing problems across the entire system. The inner system, driving refugees off Ember's moons. And now it's here. If we don't do something about it, Peak pauses, it's a problem for all of us. I can see more immediate problems, Esh sniffs. Peak ignores her. I've been looking at the networks, and when the flux event hit, it changed things. It shuffled systems, corrupted nodes, and broke open data stores. They take out a slate and show you a flickering polygon. Some of these fluxed nodes have appeared near the epicenter of the event, but I can't get access. You, however, I saw the way you worked with data when we were preparing for the run. I think you can get into these things. I want you to find a fluxed node and bring me anything you can extract. They come and go, but most can be found in the barely functioning networks of the waste. Peak pauses. Start there. Perhaps together we can find out something that might point us to what the flux is and where it comes from. Okay. They smile. I knew you'd agree. Esh looks indignant. Don't waste too much time chasing ghosts, Sleeper. There are people on this flotilla that need any help they can get. I'm sure Sleeper can do both, Esh. Peak smiles at you. I'll see you here when you have something. Good hunting. And they wave you out as Esh stomps away to make plans of her own. You know what? I've got them. I might as well use them. Saul finds you deep in the layers of the Pilgrim Seed, working on a patch for a life support vent. You hear him coming, his suit hissing as he does. I had to ask around to find you, he smiles. Seems you know the place better than me these days, after handing over 6 mushrooms. I've put in the time. And we thank you for it. Soul holds out a hand. Stand up and let me see you. He pulls you to your feet. I don't believe we ever had a sleeper on Ember's hearth. Soul looks you up and down. You sure make me wish we had. Could have done with a few workers as good as you. Just gonna let that. Soul tilts his head. A little on the quiet side, though. Seems like I owe you some answers, seeing as you've been working hard on the Pilgrim Seed these past cycles. He leans against a crate, his suit creaking. What do you want to know about? All of them? But top priority is the flux? Saul sighs. That's what I imagined. He scratches at his beard. I can't say I'm an expert, but I can tell you what we witnessed on Hearth. As at first we ignored it. A few farms had their automation systems blink out. Lifter suits locked up. Bots reset their schedules. Nothing we hadn't seen before. But then the news came out of Passereu. Not sure about that pronunciation. Passereu? Passero? Passero. I'm going to say Passero. But then the news came out of Passero that they'd been hit harder. The local network had gone down and no one could get it back up. It was rough for a while, but out in the farmland we were used to that. Passero? Capital of Hearth. Tens of thousands of souls made it their home. Soul grimaces. Anyway, we thought the flux was a freak event until the day they got the network running again. That's when the cascade happened. System after system corrupted. Data lost. And then another flux hit, and another. The bots were running circles in the fields. People had to be cut out of their lifter suits like mine. And the city. I never saw it, but I heard from the others. Saul shivers. It only got worse from there. We couldn't seem to fight. It cut us right open. That's what I know about the flux. Some folks say it came from the inner system, that it might be connected to some old tech there or something, but I never heard anything more than rumors. Saul scratches their beard. Sorry I don't have better news. Saul shifts on the crate. Anything else you want to know? There was something. I want to know about Ember's Hearth. Sure, he smiles. I mean, I spent my whole life on that rock, so I have plenty to tell. I'll save my life story for another time, he winks. But the short of it is that Hearth is the first of Ember's moons, the biggest and the most populated, which is down to the successful terraforming systems Sibylle set up back when Solheim owned the system. How are relations with the other moons? Saul smiles. Depends who you've been talking to. You shouldn't mistake me for a politician, Sleeper. That's for others to do. He gives you a look. But Ember Step was a test ground for the terraforming tech that Hearth is built on, while Ember's Song was the extraction site for the raw materials and energy needed to make it work. You can imagine that might lead to some tension. However, Saul holds up a hand, despite what people might say, Hearth was never fully stable. Saul shakes his head. Sibylle liked to talk it up, but after they pulled out and Solheim left, our people discovered they'd have to keep the systems running themselves, or the place would soon end up as dry as steppe. Hearth was good as long as the evaporators kept running, kept filling our skies with clouds. Even after the collapse, our people kept those things going, turning that subsurface ocean into a periwinkle blue sky. Saul smiles. Flux ended that, though, and when they failed, the rains failed, and the harvest with it. Saul pauses. And soon you have a city without a way to feed itself. Saul shudders. That's when we, some of us, made the decision to set out on this place. He gestures at the Pilgrim Seed and look for another future. Saul sits on the crate, shifts on the crate. Anything else you wanted to ask? There was something I want to know about. Internet's being a butt. Maybe.